A dying man lies on his deathbed in a kingdom far, far away. The man's name is Inglis, and he is the king of Silvar. All the people gathered around him are weeping as their beloved king is dying. Suddenly, a bright light appears next to Inglis. Now, beside Inglis is a beautiful woman dressed in white with long lavender hair. Inglis addresses her as divine Alistia, who seems to be a goddess. Inglis is very glad to see her before he dies from old age, and Alistia is also relieved that she can see him one last time. Alistia praises Inglis for all of his achievements when he was young, including becoming a hero king and serving the citizens of his kingdom throughout his long life. Inglis humbly says that he couldn't do all of his achievements without her blessing. But Alistia praises him even more, saying that his pure heart allowed him to slay many monsters and evil alike, and that she chose correctly in making Inglis her divine knight. Now, Alistia is here to repay all the good deeds that Inglis did in his waking life. As a reward for all the deeds he has done, Alistia will grant any wish that Inglis desires, as long as it's within her power to do so. Inglis says that he wants to be reborn, as he wishes to dedicate his next life to fighting and becoming a great hero, because he had spent his current life becoming the king of Silvar. He wonders what will happen if he spent his next entire life becoming a great hero swordsman, and smiles. Alistia grants Inglis his wish, cradling the dying man in a field of flowers, and looks forward to the day they reunite. As Inglis opens his eyes, he sees a man with white hair and a woman with black hair staring at him happily. The man's name is Luke, and the woman is called Serena. Inglis has successfully been reborn, with the same name and all. He looks confused as his new parents address him as a girl. He looks in the mirror not far away and sees his new body. He's dressed in all pink and has a very feminine face. Yep, he's been reborn as a girl, all right. Inglis rises up from her crib, lamenting that she can't even swing a sword as a baby as she looks at the swords and shield mounted on the wall. She then starts floating mid-air. Luckily, her divine blessing from Alistia is still intact. Inglis then explains about the concept of Aether, which is the foundation of all creation in the world, and everything that exists has Aether within them. And being able to control Aether means that you exert your will over the world itself. Inglis then states that Aether is in essence divine power. As Inglis is floating with the power of Aether, she notices that nobody has been able to use it. Her thoughts are interrupted as someone from outside shouts that a bunch of magicite beasts are attacking the city, and advises them to take cover in the castle. Just then, Inglis's mother, Serena, barges in the room to escape with her, but Inglis is still in midair and stops floating. Inglis falls down onto her crib, and she starts crying in hopes that her mother will forget about what she had just seen. As Serena is running to the castle, Inglis thinks about how fascinating magicite beasts are and how tough they are to fight. Serena arrives at the castle for cover, and we see another woman with black hair. Her name is Irina, Serena's sister. Here we see Irina's son, Raphael, who's only 8 years old, and he is looking after his baby sister, Rafina. Serena looks out of the window with Inglis in her arms, and Inglis is able to see what the magicite beasts are. The magicite beasts look like dragons with different colored horns and have black scales. Inglis wonders if they contain the power of condensed mana. From this, she concludes that the world has gotten much more dangerous. Inglis gets excited at the thought of fighting powerful monsters. However, Serena, Raphael, and Irina think that Inglis is scared because she keeps wiggling in her mother's arms. They chalk it up as Inglis being scared at first time seeing a magicite beast. Serena hopes that the magicite beasts will be gone so that the children are safe. Obviously, this somewhat upsets Inglis, as she wants the magicite beast to exist, so she can beat them up when she gets older. But nobody really knows what Inglis is saying, as she is still a baby, and all they see is her wiggling around in her mother's arms. Raphael sighs. He comments that he has received his rune, but all he can do is sit back and watch as others battle the magicite beasts. He obviously wants to help the soldiers in battle. Seeing this, Inglis goes on to explain that the runes are needed to wield artifacts that allow you to beat magicite beasts, and that they are the mark of all knights. Serena also happens to have a rune and is different from Raphael's. Suddenly, a magicite beast storms into the room, knocking back Irina with Rafina in her arms. Everyone is shocked and Serena rushes in as Raphael prepares to battle with the Magicite beast. Serena entrusts both Inglis and Rafina to Raphael and tells him to run away with them. But Raphael does not want to back down from a fight. He puts both of the babies in a safe place and rushes to Serena's side to fight with her. Raphael begins attacking the Magicite beast, but his weapon does not do anything against the dragon, as you would need an artifact to kill a Magicite beast. The beast then unleashes an attack that knocks a pillar and both Serena and Raphael down. As the Magicite beast begins approaching the unconscious two, Inglis interferes as she crawls to the creature. Inglis respects Raphael's will to become a hero and simply won't let him die in a place like this. She begins charging up her aether and unleashes a big ray of magic, killing the Magicite beast, threatening the city, and it bursts a large hole in the wall. However, Raphael is still conscious, and he has witnessed Inglis blast the Magicite beast into the next week. Thankfully, Raphael falls back unconscious. Inglis is relieved, hoping what Raphael saw was just a dream in his eyes. But because Inglis is just a baby, she falls unconscious as well, having used up all of her mana, as her body only has a small amount of it. Now we see Inglis all grown up. She is 5 years old. She admires her own beauty in the mirror, but is interrupted as her mother and aunt point out that she loves looking at the mirror. The two continue teasing Inglis, with Irina being impressed with Inglis's mannerisms, as she is very mature for her age. Rafina, who is called Rani by Inglis, appears behind her mother and invites her to play. In the training grounds of the knights, Rani is seen playing with a sword and stumbles because she has never lifted a sword before. Inglis helps her stand up, and they both look at a grown Raphael, now age 13. As Raphael is the next lord and the heir of Lord Bilford, a lot of people look up to him and have high expectations. Inglis is excited to spar with him one day, waiting to gauge how powerful Raphael will be in a duel. Then a traveling merchant whose name is Rambach and his group appears. It seems that they are here to spar with the knights. Rani explains that traveling merchants often get attacked by Magicite beasts because they travel around often in unsafe areas. And Inglis is envious of them as they get to battle Magicite beasts frequently. Rani is confused for a moment, but Inglis shrugs it off, saying never mind. Rani states that Raphael told her that the Rambach company is here to train with the knights, so they can get stronger to fight against Magicite beasts that they will encounter along the way. Rambach introduces his son, Rahl, who seems timid at first as he shakes Raphael's hand. In reality, he's actually a cocky bastard who mocks the knights by saying that because there are less Magicite beast attacks, they have grown rusty and weak. It is clear that he is strong and in dominating the knights, as Rani points out that he had just beaten 10 people all by himself. A lot of the knights are pointing out how strong and unfair Rahl is. Inglis, however, senses that something is wrong about Rahl because of his unfair winning streak. It is obvious that Rahl is using weak binding magic to weaken his opponent's movements, allowing him to get an opening and strike his opponents. However, Inglis explains that this only works if you are looking directly at Rahl. Inglis also noticed that nobody has picked up on how suspicious Rahl's winning streak is. Then Inglis concludes that the people have lost all concept and knowledge of magic altogether, because nobody has noticed. Rahl beats another knight and his sword goes flying towards Rani. Luckily, Inglis is able to catch it in time. Raphael thanks her for saving Rani in the nick of time. Meanwhile, Rahl is still gloating and being a douche, saying that it feels like he's the one teaching the knights a lesson, instead of the other way around. His father, Rambach, mockingly scolds him to not be rude. Raphael then steps up, offering to duel Rahl. Inglis intervenes and tells Raphael to not look at Rahl the entire time while fighting, as she says that something is wrong with how easily that he's winning. Raphael and Rahl begin to duel. He takes Inglis's advice and does not look at Rahl. Instead, he looks at Rahl's feet. Raphael is dominating against Rahl, with the knights cheering Raphael. However, things take a turn as Rahl feints an attack and Raphael bashes into the wall instead of Rahl. Rahl ends up winning the battle as he slashes against Raphael's back with his wooden sword. Rahl commends Raphael's strength and that he is different from the rest of the soldiers, as he is their heir. But he openly mocks him by telling to the knights that they will accept a holy knight like Raphael to lead them someday. Seeing this shameful display, Inglis intervenes and challenges Rahl to a duel by asking him if he's willing to teach her a bit before they go. Obviously, Rahl does not take Inglis seriously, as she is just a little child. He smirks and tells Inglis to find some dolls to play with. Inglis, however, does not take this kindly, as she blackmails Rahl, threatening to expose his scheme with using binding magic against the knights. Later, left with no other choice, Rahl accepts the duel. Meanwhile, Luke, Inglis's father, and Raphael are worried about Inglis. They are against letting Inglis duel Rahl because Inglis is just a little girl and Rahl would definitely beat her. But Inglis proudly states that she's going to duel Rahl to uphold the honor of knights, and that she is his father's daughter. But in reality, she just wants to fight someone, also not to mention she wants to stop Ronnie from crying and avenge Raphael's defeat. She also tells her father that if he doesn't let her duel Rahl, she'll tell her mother about the vase he bought. This causes Luke to agree and cheers his own daughter on. Ronnie also cheers on Inglis happily. As the duel begins, Rahl starts with using his binding magic against Inglis, but Inglis is able to dispel it with ease by patting her chest 3 times. Much to Rahl's confusion, she also thinks to herself that she can easily win the duel with Aether. But where's the fun in that, she thinks to herself. Inglis wants this duel to be measured by skill in swords, not magic. Inglis now has the perfect opportunity to measure her current ability in sword fighting in this duel. The battle begins, and Inglis is perfectly deflecting all of Rahl's attacks with her eyes closed. Rahl attempts to attack Inglis from behind, but she deflects it. Inglis is doing excellent, as she is able to predict each one and all of Rahl's moves. Everyone is astonished, with Luke happily exclaiming that Inglis is a child prodigy. Rahl is frustrated to the max as he angrily asks what Inglis is. In the end, Inglis becomes the victor and manages to beat Rahl with her eyes closed, as she ends the battle with a slash to the back. The same with what Rahl did to Raphael. Rahl surrenders, defeated by a little girl. Inglis smiles and thanks Rahl for the duel. As everyone gathers around Inglis and congratulates her, she will not stop there. She promises to herself that she will aim even higher. After all, that was the reason on why she was reborn. Ronnie stands at the altar in a church with a priest beside her. Here we see Inglis, now at the age of 6. We see Ronnie stick her hand inside this box with fancy inscriptions and it begins to glow. She comments that it's warm and it tickles a bit. She says to Inglis that it is safe and not scary at all. Ronnie's mother, Irina, scolds her lightly to not talk during her baptism. Inglis goes on to explain what baptism is. It is essentially a ritual wherein a person is granted a rune needed to become a knight, and that they are divided into ranks: special, greater, normal, and lesser. More powerful runes enable one to use more powerful artifacts. As Ronnie pulls out her hand, it is revealed that she has the Bow of Light rune, a greater rune. Both of Ronnie's parents are happy, and Ronnie goes over to Inglis and shows it off to her. Inglis smiles and congratulates her, commenting that she'll be a fine knight one day. Next up is Inglis, who comes up to the rune box, but before she can, Raphael is happy and is sure that she'll get a greater rune, or maybe even a special one at that. Inglis looks away and tells him anything but that. The camera then pans onto Inglis's mother, Serena, and we see a flashback cutscene to Serena hugging Inglis, saying she shouldn't want her kid to have a greater or special rune. She says she can't help but feel that they are going to force Inglis to live and die for the sake of others. Inglis nods and agrees with her mother, saying that she has no need for power. That will dictate how she lives her life. Inglis then puts her hand into the rune box, and it begins to glow. She explains the nature of the box. The box is a device that fixes the flow of mana and imprints it on the user. She comments that the people of this era are unable to, or rather lack the ability to control mana, but that doesn't mean they completely don't have any mana. Inglis goes on to explain that they simply forgot how to use it. Inglis assumes that runes inscribed by the box allows them to pour the mana into a weapon and turn it into an artifact, allowing them to wield it against magicide beasts. As Inglis pulls out her hand, it turns out she is a runeless, and her family is unable to accept it. As her family is panicking, she monologues that of course she doesn't have a rune. As a divine knight, she uses Aether, not mana. So when the box attempted to imprint a rune on her, she simply deflected it. Luke Inglis's father states that without a rune, Inglis can't be a knight. Therefore, she can't succeed him as captain. Inglis is sorry and apologizes for disappointing her father. Luke feels guilty and says she did not disappoint him. Inglis tells them that there are more things someone can do without a rune, and that Ronnie will be a fine knight, and that she will serve as her squire. She says that even without a rune, she can still protect Ronnie. But what this really means for Inglis is that she can keep fighting on the front lines without being promoted, as she will continue being a squire. While Inglis is happy with the outcome, Luke, Lord Bilford, and Raphael are mostly devastated. But Ronnie hugs Inglis, saying that she is happy for the girl, and that they can be together forever. Inglis does a deadpan stare, thinking that she can't help but feel guilty. Inglis narrates about what prism flow is. It is a natural phenomenon. While it has no effect on humans, it can turn animals and plants into magicide beasts that attack humans. He goes on to explain that the most powerful of them all is the Rainbow King, also known as the Prismer, which can level a nation on its own. Here we see Inglis and Ronnie all grown up to the age of 12. Inglis laments that all of the magicide beasts that she took down were weak. She wonders when she's able to fight a Prismer. Ronnie says that there are no sightings of a Prismer in Ymir for the 20 or 30 years past. But Inglis says that there's been sightings in neighboring countries, and that she'd love to travel there. Ronnie says it's scary, but Inglis is determined, asking Ronnie if she wants to see someone else besides the Holy Knights defeat a Prismer, as Inglis is cheering the rain on to produce more magicide beasts, or rather a Prismer. Ronnie giggles, to which Inglis asks why. Ronnie explains that it's funny that a pretty girl like Inglis is strong enough to fight magicide beasts without a rune. Inglis huffs and says that's their little secret. As the rain stops, Ronnie and Inglis step out of a castle balcony to see a huge floating island with a kingdom on top of it. The huge floating island is called the Highland, the home of the Highlanders. The Highlanders produce artifacts and rune boxes needed to fight the magicide beasts by the people on the surface. In exchange, the surface dwellers give the Highlanders a massive amount of crops and materials. Inglis notes that the Highlands did not exist in her past life, and wonders where the kingdom of Silvar is now, as she could not find a trace of it in books. Inglis sees Ronnie in praying gesture and asks her what she's doing. Ronnie says that she's making a wish, and there is a myth that if the Highland is visible, making a wish on it will come true. She insists that Inglis also make a wish, and she obliges. Ronnie asks what Inglis wished for, and she replies by wanting to challenge stronger opponents. It's night, and Inglis is busy looking at herself again, as she is wearing a beautiful dress. Ronnie compliments her, and Inglis does the same. The two go back and forth with the compliments before they eventually go to the gathering. They talk about the Highlander coming with an inspector from the capital. Ronnie says that an inspector comes to Ymir every 2 or 3 years. But it's the first time they've been accompanied by a Highlander. The two enter the room, with Inglis being the center of attention in the party. She sheepishly clings onto Ronnie as she feels uncomfortable with the stairs. Lord Bilford introduces Ronnie and Inglis to a holy knight named Leon, and the inspector, Lord Shioni. Then the Highlander envoy steps in, revealing him to be Rahl. Both Ronnie and Inglis are confused as to why Rahl is a Highlander. Rahl explains that he gave up all of his savings to become a Highland citizen. He also comments that it was worth it becoming a Highlander, has more power than a surface dweller noble. Inglis is not interested in the topic, but Rahl makes a comment that Inglis has grown into a beautiful lady. And what does she really seek? Inglis brushes off his gaze and says that she's only interested in honing her fighting skills. Rahl mocks her by saying that she's runeless. What good would improving her skill be if she doesn't have a rune? Then Leon intervenes, saying that he has someone that Ronnie and Inglis would like to meet, a Hyrule menace. Ronnie asks while they go to meet the Hyrule if all Highlanders are all like that. Leon says that some of them are because of their prospective surface dwellers, and lesser humans who can't protect themselves without the artifacts they give them. The girls then meet with the Hyrule menace, the ones who can fight the Prismer. Leon calls her name, which is Eris, and tells her to stop being gloomy, and invites her to come inside and have fun. However, Eris doesn't want to, and that's why she's alone in the garden. Leon says that there are people who want to meet her, and he introduces Ronnie and Inglis to her before he gets slapped in the face by Eris. Leon says that there wasn't any reason to slap him, and that they were looking forward to meeting her. Eris then gets up and walks out of the garden. Ronnie asks if she did anything wrong, but Leon assures her that she did nothing wrong. Leon then suggests he tells the ladies what Raphael's been up to, but they are interrupted by people screaming. They investigate where the screams are coming from, which is from the ballroom. They see a charred corpse of a man. Lord Bilford tells them that it was Lord Shioni, and Rahl was the one behind it. He says that Lord Shioni failed to treat the Highlanders the respect they deserve. Meanwhile, a knight is on the floor saying it's all her fault. Leon asks what did she mean by this, and the knight tells Leon that Rahl ordered her to go to Rahl's chambers tonight. But Lord Shioni stepped in between the two and created flames out of thin air toward Lord Shioni. Inglis remembers when Rahl cheated on his spar with the knights all those years ago. She deduces that it was mostly given to him by the Highlanders. Leon then covers what remains of Lord Shioni and tells that this is going to be a problem. Rahl suggests that Leon tell everybody that Lord Shioni suddenly got sick and died. Rahl also says that since he's a Highlander, if he tells everyone that happened, they will accept his words. Leon says nervously that it's certainly true, even if the king of Ymir can't say a word against the Highlanders. Not that the king would in the first place. Rahl smugly says that because of that, he can tell the king that Lord Shioni died from an illness, but can also lie that Duke Bilford had Lord Shioni assassinated. He then gleefully says to Duke Bilford to command the knight to do what Rahl asked of him earlier, mocking Duke Bilford by saying to sell out his loyal knight to save himself. Inglis intervenes, telling Rahl that he's grown into a sick man, and all she can feel for him is disgust. Rahl turns to her and tells Inglis not to get cocky just because she beat him once before, and that he can ask for Inglis instead of the knight. Inglis interrupts, saying that she's okay with that. Ronnie asks her what she's thinking. Inglis explains that Rahl hates her, and that he's sure that Rahl will eventually come after him. So it's better that Rahl goes after her first. Inglis asks for Rahl's word that he'll leave the knight and Ronnie alone. Rahl agrees, telling Inglis to come to the mansion where he stays at later alone. As Rahl leaves the ballroom, he monologues that Inglis shattered his pride, and that this time he'll break Inglis and make her his. Inglis is then about to approach the mansion where Rahl is currently staying in. She thinks to herself what to do as she hopes that Rahl has gotten stronger. But her thoughts are interrupted as the Hyrule menace from earlier, Eris, stands in her way. Eris knows what happened because Leon told her. Inglis asks if Eris was here to save her from Rahl. Eris dodges the question by asking if she's Raphael's cousin, and that she can't let her do this. Inglis thanks her for her concern, but says that they don't know what Rahl will do if she doesn't give in to his wants. Eris assures Inglis that she'll handle this however she can. Inglis asks if she's going to kill Rahl, and warns her that there will be consequences for Ymir if that happens. Eris says that Inglis doesn't need to concern herself with that, and tells her to go, but Inglis refuses. Since Inglis is stubborn, Eris has no choice but to draw her weapon, and she feels guilty about having to battle Inglis. Instead of being intimidated, Inglis laughs and thanks Eris for giving her the opportunity to fight her. Inglis is excited as she has the chance to fight a Hyrule menace, and can use this opportunity to measure her skills. Eris calls Inglis an idiot and asks her what she's doing, but Inglis deflects back saying that this was Eris's idea. Eris has no choice and will resort to scaring Inglis instead. The battle begins, and Inglis grabs Eris's ankle and throws her off, but Eris regains her footing and slashes at Inglis. Inglis praises Eris and continues to do so in her thoughts, as she is a Hyrule menace. She isn't like the other knights and isn't even at her full power. Eris notices that Inglis is happy and asks her why. Inglis tells Eris that she simply loves fighting strong people. Eris notices something wrong as Inglis is able to handle her fight pretty well despite not having a rune or an artifact. Inglis tells Eris to show her true power, and Eris agrees, but she backs off after having Inglis injured. Inglis asks if she's not enough to be Eris's opponent, and asks if the Hyrule menace can sense mana. Eris says that they can sense mana, and Inglis shows Eris the amount of mana she's been hiding this entire time, as a show that Eris shouldn't hold back. However, instead of seeing Inglis as a threat, Eris says that Inglis doesn't need her help. This devastates Inglis as she starts whining and groveling before Eris, wanting her to fight her. However, their conversation is cut short as lightning strikes Eris and she is blown away. Eris angrily calls out the culprit, who is none other than Leon. There's a heated battle between Leon and Inglis. Leon, who had previously stolen an artifact, uses it to betray Inglis and tries to win over the Highlander's favor. He claims to have no intention of betrayal. Leon, being a holy knight, is meant to protect people of his nation, no matter the cost. But since the infiltration of their nation by the Highlanders, he seems to have a different plan. Inglis tries to persuade him from embarking on the journey he was about to embark on. Leon asks if Inglis and her friend Eris are willing to join the Bloodchain Brigade. The Bloodchain Brigade is a type of anti-Highland organization. Inglis doesn't seem to take any interest in the suggestion, knowing full well that the Bloodchain Brigade only brings chaos. All the villages in which the Bloodchain tried to attack the Highland ended up being destroyed. Eris tries to point out this fact to Leon, but he's still persistent about his plans. He asks for Eris to join him, but she declines. Inglis too declines. Inglis further states her interest in battling Leon. Although Inglis may look cute, actually she's tough. This fact is stated by Leon just before he accepts the fight. Leon doesn't relent and throws everything he has at Inglis. He uses a high-rank artifact which gives him with the ability to control lightning beasts. These beasts, when beaten, explode, causing harm to anyone close by. Eris tells Inglis to use heavy but long-range attacks on the lightning beasts. Leon quickly attacks Eris in an attempt to stop her from destroying more of the lightning beasts with her long-range attacks. He calls her a tsundere for using the first attack to tell Inglis to be careful. Inglis surrounds herself with waves of compressed aether, thus forming an aether shell which absorbs the blast wave from the explosion. The shell allows her to make short-range attacks on the lightning beasts without getting hurt. Eris tells Inglis that the most efficient way is by using long-range attacks. Inglis says her own way will destroy the lightning beasts faster. Inglis proves her point about her technique being faster. The only flaw in this technique is the fact that it can't be maintained for long. She then goes forward to facing Leon. Eris is surprised that, even after using her full strength, she couldn't defeat the lightning beasts. Meanwhile, Inglis did so without even using much of her own energy. Leon acknowledges the fact that Inglis's skills are quite impressive. He also states that even with Eris by his side, it would still be hard to defeat Inglis. He calls Inglis a monster with a prismer. Inglis denies, saying that she has been training to defeat such a species on her own. Leon explains to Inglis that she still has some weakness, and so she may not be able to defeat any monster on her own. He then tries a surprise attack on Inglis, but she seems to be a step ahead and stops him in his tracks. Inglis catches him and goes for the kill. Her attention appears to no longer be on Leon, but on Rani. Rani is thrown off a building by a magicite beast. Remembering her vow to always protect Rani, Inglis loses all focus and interest she had in Leon and rushes over to Rani. She recalled the promise she had made to herself, which was to master the blade and live a life beholden to none. The magicite beast attempts to attack Rani, but is stopped due to the intervention of Inglis. Inglis asks Rani why she had come back. Rani replies that it wouldn't be right if she made Inglis embark on such a journey all by herself. Rani planned to go on ahead and teach Rahl a lesson. But to her greatest dismay, Rahl had turned into a magicite beast, the same beast that tried to kill her. Inglis is shocked to hear this. She couldn't believe that a human would be able to transform into such. It had never happened before and seemed to be more than impossible for such a thing to happen. Just then, Leon begins to speak again. He admits that he is the one responsible for Rahl becoming a magicite beast. He admits that he drugged Rahl. Eris refuses to believe it, at least not until Leon shows them the prism powder he used. Prism powder is a drug made of condensing prism flow, a drug made by the Bloodchain Brigade. The brigade had left some with him the last time they tried to recruit him. According to Leon, the drug is harmless to surface people, but if used on a Highlander, will turn the person into a beast. What worried Eris a lot is the fact that the drug has no cure, meaning that anyone the drug is used on will just have to be killed. Meanwhile, Leon is about to make an exit. Before going, he told Inglis that Rahl wouldn't be a threat to her due to her immense power and strength. He finally makes his exit, leaving Inglis and Eris to fight Rahl, Who is a magicite beast? At this point, Ronnie is just watching from the sidelines. Ronnie tries to ask why Leon chose to betray them, but is cut short by Inglis. Inglis, on the other hand, is feeling pitiful of Raul's current state. She makes up her mind to kill Raul without making him suffer. She tries to end everything with a single strike, but the side effect of that strike on the city will end up being enormous. The strike she wants to use is too powerful and may destroy a large part of the city alongside Raul. She started to think of a way to get through with such a plan without causing any problems for her town. She jumps up into the air to get a clearer view of the city. By so doing, she comes up with a plan to kill Raul and not affect the city in any way. Just then, Ronnie's father, who had been looking for Ronnie, comes out of nowhere. Ronnie is happy to see her dad. Her dad apologizes for leaving Ronnie and Inglis on their own and making them fend for themselves. Inglis is not happy because she won't be able to use her powers in front of Ronnie's dad. She didn't want people to discover that she had such power. She quickly thinks of a plan and decides to use Eris as a decoy. She planned to defeat the beast, but gave it all the credit and praise to Eris. Inglis quickly took Eris by the hand. Both of them moved towards the beast. Eris, being confused, asks Inglis what the plan is all about. Inglis replied that they had to kick the beast out of the city. Only then will they be able to finish the beast off. They ran towards the beast and kicked it together. The kick was so powerful that it sent the beast flying all the way out of town. Immediately, Inglis gives credit to Eris, saying she's so powerful. Eris, knowing full well that her strength wouldn't have been sufficient to even swipe the beast off its feet, asked Inglis what she was doing. Inglis just instructed Eris to follow her lead and try to keep up. Outside the city, Eris asks why Inglis told everyone that she was the one that kicked the beast. Ronnie quickly cut in, saying that Inglis doesn't want people knowing about her power, that it would bring about chaos if people knew about Inglis's power. Although that was only the explanation Inglis gave to Ronnie, the true reason was the fact that if people knew about Inglis's power, she would be stuck with the duty of protecting the town. Eris asks Inglis if the magicite beast is as strong as a prisoner. Inglis replied that the difference is like comparing a child with an adult. Inglis further says that she needs to be able to kill the beast with one hit to be able to even fight a prisoner. Inglis uses a strike called the Aether Strike to kill the beast. Eris is unsure of the type of power Inglis wielded. The strike worked with a single hit. The beast is wiped out. Although effective, the strike consumed a lot of Inglis's strength. Feeling a little tired, Inglis falls to the ground. She claims that she lacks stamina and needs more training. Back at Eris's home, Inglis begs Eris to tell the people that she was the one that killed the beast. After some conversation, Eris finally agrees to take all the credit and lie about being the beast slayer. She also promises to let the people know about Leon and how he had betrayed them for the Bloodchain Brigade. Eris promises to make sure no one blames Inglis for any of the misfortunes, but rather tells everyone that all the recent happenings were Leon's doings. Before parting ways, Inglis asks why Eris was upset at the party. Eris doesn't reply with any positive answer. She only states that if she were meant to know, then they would find out later in the future. She made it known to them that she wouldn't let anyone know why she was upset. Inglis and Ronnie go back to training. Ronnie seems to be improving on her arrow skills, while Inglis tries to guide Ronnie and train herself for a bigger battle. Inglis tells Ronnie that her arrows are good enough to dodge. Although it seems like a compliment, Ronnie takes it the other way. Inglis quickly changes topic and tells Ronnie that it's time to embark on their journey to the Knight Academy, which is in the town's capital city of Kairal. Ronnie's parents come to see both of them off. Ronnie's father urges Inglis to take care of his daughter Ronnie, no matter the cost. His plans were for Ronnie to train and become a knight, while Inglis would train to be Ronnie's squire. Ronnie and Inglis set out on a journey, leaving behind their home, which they had known their whole lives, and taking a month-long journey to the capital. After about a week on the road, they reached the town of Nova, a town being ruled by a Highlander who took over the land nearly a year ago. The bartender exclaimed that life with the Highlander as ruler is in fact better than life with the former ruler. It was in this town that Inglis realized that the money they had brought with them was diminished. The amount of money left won't even be enough to last them a day. Ronnie and Inglis start to argue about food. The argument is based on their both feeding habits. Both of them ate too much, which constituted the spending of a lot of money. They're stopped by a bartender who urges them to get a job at the castle. The duo move into the palace seeking a job. Fortunately for them, they pass the knight test and are selected as knights to protect the town from magicite beast attacks. Ronnie exclaims that the simplicity of the test was far more than they expected. As a result of doing exceptionally well, Ronnie and Inglis are given good guest rooms to stay in. They're also given other privileges. While taking their bath, Inglis senses a kind of presence in the town. She felt that the presence was drawing mana from beneath the feet of members of the town. While still in the bath, a woman approaches Inglis and Ronnie. The woman turns out to be a Highlander and the leader of the town. She seemed rather gentle and nice, unlike the stories told about Highlanders in general. While still trying to introduce herself as Lady Selim, she is interrupted by a group of children. The children were orphans taken into the castle by Lady Selim. Lady Selim asks for some help from Inglis and Ronnie. She needed their help to stop some knights who were causing mayhem in the town. The knights were working under the old ruler, and since Lady Selim took over power, they started causing chaos in society. Inglis and Ronnie agree to help. The next day, Lady Selim, Inglis, and Ronnie set out for the knights' hideout. At the hideout, they are surrounded, and it seems as if they won't make it out alive. Inglis is happy to face off with a girl who has the same intensity as Eris. The girl happens to be a Hyrule menace. Inglis and Ronnie come up with a plan to defeat their opponents, the plan being that Ronnie would distract the ex-knights of the town, while Inglis would face off the Hyrule menace, who seemed to be the most powerful of the knights. Inglis, though, takes the fight with Hyrule menace as a way of testing the fruits of all her training. While Ronnie is busy protecting Selim and the others from the ex-knights, Inglis battles with the Hyrule. Ronnie asks why Inglis is always happy at times like this when she's faced with opponents that match her strength. Inglis doesn't give an answer. Instead, she tells Ronnie to keep Selim safe. Inglis approaches the Hyrule stating her intentions to have a one-on-one battle. The Hyrule, on the other hand, isn't really impressed. She acknowledges Inglis's confidence but prompts her to back out. The Hyrule calls Inglis a weak girl, saying Inglis doesn't stand a chance against her. Inglis doesn't seem to be frightened by this. Instead, Inglis converts her aether into mana, then shows it off to the Hyrule. This show of power is meant to send a message to the Hyrule, telling the Hyrule that she may look weak, but she isn't. The Hyrule is amazed by the show of immense power by Inglis. Lady Selim also sees the power of Inglis. Selim is shocked. She thought Inglis was just an ordinary girl. She didn't know that someone like Inglis could wield such power. Selim gets lost in thought. By so doing, she nearly gets killed by one of the ex-knights, who uses a surprise attack on her. Ronnie, on the other hand, is a step ahead and catches the knight in his tracks. Ronnie then uses a burst of energy to multiply her arrows. This attack does a great deal to immobilize the knights. The arrow doesn't kill any of the knights, but it knocks most of them out. Back to the fight between the Hyrule and Inglis. Inglis prompts the Hyrule to fight with all her might and at her best. The Hyrule is happy to hear this because she had been bored due to the lack of good foes to fight. Inglis loved the fact that the Hyrule is aggressive. Inglis actually hoped that after the battle, she could become friends with the Hyrule. The Hyrule orders Inglis to draw her sword and face her, but Inglis replies saying that she isn't really a fan of swords. She says that the sword is uselessly dull. This statement made the Hyrule more annoyed. She tries a swift attack on Inglis, but Inglis proves to be a step ahead. Inglis dodges the attack without much effort. The Hyrule is amazed. She exclaims, saying that an ordinary knight would have been killed even before moving a muscle. The Hyrule tries to repeat the attack. She does the attack again and again, but Inglis dodges everything. Inglis, realizing that the Hyrule maintained her distance even as she was attacking her with a spear, decides to close off the space. She pushes the Hyrule to a closed area, thus making it impossible for the Hyrule to keep any distance. Inglis finally gets hold of the Hyrule and makes an attack on her own. She punches the Hyrule through a wall. Inglis seems to be surprised that the Hyrule could still stand even after an attack like that. She also realizes that the Hyrule desire to fight has increased. The Hyrule finally admits that Inglis has a lot of power and asks why a person with so much power would serve a Highlander. She further states that the Highlanders planned on stealing away the surface land. and that Inglis is actively helping the Highland achieve their goal. Inglis wasn't quite sure of what the High Rall was saying. She was blindsided by the niceness of Céline, so much so that she refused to believe this. She tries to convince herself that the type of steal away the High Rall was talking about could be either political or financial. Unknown to her, the type of theft in question is actually the whole land. Céline planned to take the whole town of Nova and the land to the sky. The High Rall asks Inglis if she has felt any presence in the town, a type of presence draining the mana in the town. The High Rall urges Inglis to look into the cause of the flow of mana in the town, so as to find out what's truly going on. Only then will Inglis be able to realize how foolish her deeds are. Inglis is a little curious but discards her curiosity because her main aim is to gain more power and not to play the role of a hero. She tells the High Rall that the only reason she is helping Céline is just to earn money and continue her journey. The High Rall is furious. She wonders what the point of power without justice is. She quickly goes back to attacking Inglis. This time she uses different attacks. She tries a different technique and unleashes her hidden power. The technique catches Inglis off guard. For the first time, the High Rall finally lands a blow on Inglis. Inglis is surprised at the technique being used by the High Rall, a technique which involved attacks that ignore space and distance. The fight had just begun to get interesting, exclaimed Inglis. Inglis didn't waste any time on mastering and predicting the attacks of the High Rall. And so, once again, Inglis has the upper hand. She kept on moving and dodging, making it rather difficult for the High Rall to complete a single attack. Inglis seizes an opportunity and grabs the High Rall spear, but this isn't enough. The High Rall kicks Inglis. She's surprised that the High Rall could use both weapons and her body parts to engage in combat. Inglis starts to suspect that the High Rall was predicting her moves too. The High Rall tries to finish Inglis off, but something unexpected happens. Inglis uses her Aether Shell to divert the attack, then quickly uses a different attack on the High Rall. Inglis renders the High Rall powerless at the moment. Just then, Ronnie enters the room to give an update on the happenings outside. She was about to tell Inglis that all the threats outside had been compromised. Suddenly, the High Rall uses her last strength to grab Ronnie. She tries to choke Ronnie, stating that if Inglis really wants to save Ronnie, then she will just have to let the High Rall flee. Inglis accepts to let the High Rall go, but she warns the High Rall never to touch Ronnie again. If not, she will make sure the High Rall ends up a dead woman. Before going, the High Rall introduces herself to Inglis as Sistia Rogue. Back at the castle, Céline thanks Ronnie and Inglis for a job well done. She was happy that none of her guards came back injured. Inglis asks what Céline planned to do with the knights they captured. Céline assures Inglis that she won't hurt any of the knights. Rather, she will give them a chance at repentance. Ronnie is surprised at the kindness shown by Céline. While still conversing with each other, Mimosa brings some tea. They all take it, but Céline is unsure of the change in taste of the tea. She asks, but Mimosa assures her that she only added some herbs to it. Later that night, Céline decides to tell and show Ronnie and Inglis what she actually planned to do to the town. She takes them to a place under the castle. Upon arrival, Inglis notices a magic circle. It was this circle that had been draining the mana from the town. Céline explains that the magic circle is actually the core of the highland in the town. A levitation circle which will take the whole town to the sky once it gains enough mana to power it. She said that the Highlanders planned on enslaving the town when it gets to the sky, but she would try her best to ensure that it didn't happen. She asks Ronnie and Inglis if it was a good idea to hide such a plan from the town. She also asks if the plan was a good one. Inglis allows Ronnie to answer. Ronnie happily says that the plan is a good one, and that if she needs help at any point in time, she should send for their presence. The next day, there seemed to be an earthquake in the city. All the guards, together with Ronnie and Inglis, hurry to check what had happened. To their greatest dismay, it is a magicite beast. Inglis realizes that it wasn't just any magicite beast, but Céline. Inglis is confused because there was no prism flow nearby. Inglis reminds Ronnie of a similar occurrence 3 years ago, when Rahl was changed into a magicite beast with the aid of the Bloodchain Brigade prism powder. Ronnie suspects that it's the Bloodchain Brigade's doing. The only question Inglis couldn't quite understand was when. When did Céline get poisoned? Mimosa comes out to admit that she poisoned Céline. She said she did it because her son was killed by a Highlander, and so she did it out of vengeance. Just as she finishes making her confession, the beast kills her with a powerful beam of light. The guards plan to go into position and kill the beast, but they are stopped by Inglis. She tells them to evacuate the town and all the people in it. The guards try to argue, but they are reassured by Ronnie. Ronnie asks Inglis what the plan is. Inglis replies, saying that Ronnie should block Céline, whenever she notices Céline trying to fire a beam. Inglis then runs towards Céline. She tries to be careful so as to not kill her. Inglis tries to talk to Céline. She tries to make her snap out of her current trance. Céline tries to fire a beam at Inglis, but it gets blocked by Ronnie. The distraction didn't work, and Céline was back on her feet. She tries to shoot another beam at Inglis. This time, Inglis blocks it. Fortunately for her, Inglis gets some unexpected help from Sistia, the Hyrule. Sistia tries to kill the beast but is stopped by Inglis. Inglis tells Sistia that she knows Sistia is part of the Bloodchain Brigade and that she was the one responsible for Céline's misfortune. She said that she knew that Sistia gave the prism powder to Mimosa. She gets interrupted, this time by a man who claims to be the leader of the Bloodchain Brigade. He says he has no name and will be referred to as whatever Inglis wanted. The man explains that every member of the Bloodchain Brigade has access to the prism powder. The man further claimed to want to protect the land. Inglis interrupts him, saying that he wanted to protect the land from the danger he created. Inglis refuses to allow the man and Sistia to kill Céline, so she makes a deal with them. The deal involves her casting a spell, and if it doesn't work, then they can go ahead and kill the beast. But if not, then they won't. They agreed to her terms, but also stated terms of their own. The terms are, no matter the outcome, Ronnie and Inglis will leave the town. The reason being that they didn't want her to interfere in any of their plans. Inglis agrees. She then moves closer to Céline. This time, she converts her aether into mana. Then she uses the mana to cast a spell on Céline. Fortunately for Inglis, the spell works, and by so doing it freezes Céline. The leader of the Bloodchain Brigade then helps cast a spell to make Céline smaller and easy to carry about. The spell involved removing all of Céline's aether. By so doing, she became smaller. While casting the spell, Inglis thought of the chances that the leader of the Bloodchain Brigade being a divine knight. She realizes that she has a lot of things to explore on the surface land. Before leaving, Ronnie and Inglis make Sistia assure them that they won't do anything to the people in the town. The leader of the Bloodchain Brigade assures them that their only enemy is the Highlanders. Ronnie and Inglis visit the 3 orphan children which Céline had brought out of the streets. Inglis assures them that she will bring Céline back to her normal size. She also prompts them to stay together so that when Céline comes back, she'll be happy. Ronnie and Inglis finally reach Almen Cathedral. This meant that their journey to the country's capital would soon be over. At the Almen Cathedral, Inglis and Ronnie finally see a prismer, the beast that Inglis had been praying to get battle with for a long time now. However, the prismer seems to be frozen, according to the guards at the cathedral. Many decades ago, the knights of that part of Almen fought the prisoner and froze it. The knights were able to defeat and freeze it, but they weren't able to move it. This was the reason for the cathedral being built. The cathedral was built so that the guards would be able to watch over the prismer. Inglis asks if maybe they melted the ice the same way they did for Céline. Then maybe the prismer would start to move again. Ronnie, however, urges her to keep quiet. The reason for saying this is the fact that she may get arrested if the guards hear her saying weird things. Inglis, however, continues saying the same thing. She says that she could still be the prismer power pulsing through the ice. Inglis comes to the conclusion that the prismer may not be dead. Ronnie prompts her to keep quiet. Just then a guard approaches them. He tells them that magicite beasts are attacking the town. He tells them to stay in the cathedral and hide. At the mention of the magicite beast attack, Inglis gets excited and runs toward the town. She tells Ronnie to meet up with her in the town. Ronnie tells the guard that Inglis isn't usually this excited. On her way to the town, Inglis realizes that the town was built to protect and keep watch over the prismer. She knew that the town wouldn't have a shortage of knights. She wanted to see different knights and also fight alongside them too. Inglis finally reaches the town. She's amazed at the sight of knights fighting and killing magicite beasts. Just then, a magicite beast tries to attack Inglis. She gets ready to battle with it, but is interrupted by another knight, a female who kills the beast before telling Inglis that it is too dangerous to fight with a magicite beast without a rune or special artifact. Inglis looks at the girl, then notices that with the type of skill the girl had, she must have undergone no small amount of training time. Inglis also notices a rune similar to the one Ranni has. Inglis thanks the girl but tells her that she will be fine on her own. The girl, however, insists on helping Inglis. A group of 3 magicite beasts attack the girl, but she beheads all of them with a single strike. Inglis is impressed. The girl checks up on Inglis to be sure if she is hurt and maybe needs to get some shelter. Just then, a flying magicite beast attacks the girl. This time, Inglis is to help her. Inglis intercepts the attack, then kicks the beast in the direction of the girl. The girl in return beheads the beast. Inglis and the girl team up to fight the flying magicite beasts. At this point, the girl realizes that Inglis didn't really need help the first time. She apologized to Inglis. Inglis, however, is happy to team up with her and fight. The girl introduces herself as Leon Olfa. Inglis seems to remember or know someone with the same second name as Leon. She said the name sounded familiar. They continue to fight as a team. A magicite beast tries to sneak attack Leon, but is intercepted by Ranni, who kills it. Inglis introduces Leon to Ranni. She also tells Ranni about the circumstances that brought about them teaming up. Leon thanks Ranni for helping her. Ranni introduces herself to Leon as Rafina Bilford. Leon wastes no time figuring out that Ranni was the younger sibling to Raphael Bilford. Ranni is shocked to know that Leon knew her brother. Finally, the knights tell the town that all the magicite beasts have been killed. They thank Ranni, Inglis, and Leon for helping them protect the town. They also offer to give Inglis and Ranni a reward for their help towards protecting the town. Ranni is shocked at this point. She asks why Leon wasn't invited to get a reward too. The knight tells Ranni that the town has nothing to offer someone who is a member of a clan of traitors. Ranni still insists that Leon come with them. Leon tells Ranni to go get the reward without her. She says that she's already used to this situation. She prompts Ranni not to worry about her. The knight decides to explain things to Ranni. He tells her that Leon was the sister of Leon Olfa, a former holy knight who betrayed the country and fled the town. Inglis remembers where she heard the name Olfa before. The knight prompts them to stay away from Leon. If not, people would start to talk and gossip about them too. He further asks if they are still interested in the reward, but Ranni turns down the offer, saying she doesn't need any reward from the likes of people like him. Just after turning down the offer, Raphael Bilford and a Hyrule menace arrive at a flying dock. Raphael asks the knight what was going on. The knight replies saying that it was the traitorous knight's sister, and that he had nothing to worry about. Ranni, on the other hand, runs over to welcome Raphael. Raphael is surprised to see his sister Ranni and Inglis. He admires Inglis and appreciates her growth, saying she has grown to become a fine young woman. The Hyrule menace tells the girls that Raphael almost never has anything nice to say about girls. At this point, Raphael introduces the Hyrule menace to them as Ripple. Inglis imagines how strong Ripple will be. She starts to think that Ripple is as strong as Eris. Ranni asks Raphael if he knew about Leon. He replies that he does. He then invites all of them for dinner so as to talk about it. Back at Raphael's place, Ranni explains the encounter she and Inglis had with the Bloodchain Brigade leader. Raphael is surprised that the two survived such an encounter. What surprises Inglis and Ranni the most is the fact that Raphael surrendered the city they fought with the Bloodchain Brigade leader to the Highland. Inglis shows Raphael Selene, who happens to be a magicite beast. Raphael is amazed at the sight of Selene. Leon couldn't even believe that Selene is a magicite beast. This is due to her size. Ranni reacts once again, condemning the way the knight had behaved towards Leon. Leon assures her that it wasn't the first time, and that she's already used to things like that. Inglis, however, interrupts, saying that despite all of this, Leon still protects the townspeople. Leon starts to explain by saying that it isn't the fault of the townspeople. Apparently, her brother happened to be the first holy knight in the town. But after her brother killed a Highlander emissary and the inspector of the town, everything changed. Ronnie is surprised to hear that Lord Shioni, the inspector, is dead. Inglis tells Ronnie that Leon only did this because he was angry with what Raoul was doing. Leon is happy to hear that Ronnie and Inglis met her brother. Ronnie assured her that her brother was a nice person and very easy to talk to. Leon discloses her intentions to become a full-fledged knight in order to capture her brother for betraying the country and casting aside his title as a holy knight. In order to become a full-fledged knight, she will have to attend the Knights Academy in the capital city. At the mention of this, Ronnie becomes very happy, knowing full well that she and Inglis are also heading to the Knight Academy in the capital city. Ronnie finally states that it could be the start of a long friendship. Leon and Inglis agree with her. Leon, however, is still concerned with the Magicite beast appearances in the town, but Raphael assures her that they had a plan to stop them. The next day, Raphael and a group of knights show up with flying gear. They attach the gears to the frozen prismer and move it out of the town. This was the only solution to the Magicite beast problem. The fact that the prismer and prism flow meant that the Magicite beasts would continue attacking till they get to it. Meanwhile, Ripple meets Inglis to have a little talk with her. She tells Inglis that Eris had told her so much about her. She then asks Inglis if she believes that she would be able to beat the prismer. Inglis, however, says that no one fights to lose. Ripple finally discloses a secret to Inglis. She tells Inglis that the prismer was actually the one that locked itself in the ice a few decades ago, but they told the people of the town otherwise so as to not spark any cause for worry. She tells Inglis about the lifespan of Hyrule Menace and also the fact that the recent happenings meant that the prismer would soon revive. Inglis, however, is no newbie to the plan. Inglis states the full plan for Ripple. She also calls the plan a waste. She continues saying that the Magicite beast and the invading armies will destroy each other. Inglis then begs Ripple to make sure that she calls her once the event of the Prismer Awakening happens. Ripple assures and promises Inglis that she will make sure she calls her no matter what. Raphael asks Ronnie, Inglis, and Leon to wait since the flying dock will be returned to the capital city, the place they intend to head to for night training. They agree to wait. The next day happened to be the same day they enrolled into the Knights Academy. Prince Ween welcomes everyone into the Knight Academy. He urges everyone to balance the weight between honor and the responsibility they bear in their hearts at all times. At their orientation, the principal, Miss Miliera, finally addresses the new freshmen. Ronnie finds it difficult to believe that the lady in front of her is the principal. She asks Inglis, who shows her the special class rune on the principal's hand. The rune reminds Ronnie of Raphael, because he too had a special class rune just like the principal. The rune meant that the principal was strong enough to be a holy knight. Just then, Ronnie, Inglis, and Leon start to hear rumors concerning Leon. The rumor stated that Leon was the sister of a Highlander killer. Ronnie immediately wants to act, but is stopped by Inglis, who reminds her that the principal is still addressing them. The principal states that there's no time for long talks, and that it was time for orientation. She then told the students that they would be starting with warm-ups. She puts all the students on a platform, then uses a special gravitational pull to weigh them down. This makes it difficult for any of them to stand properly. However, the gravitational pull wasn't a big deal to Inglis. The principal then tells them that they will have to do their combat training in the gravity field. She also states how sad it makes her whenever she hears that her student died on the battlefield. This was the reason behind the gravity field. She wanted to train them as hard as possible. She then conjures up 3 monsters. She states that the game is a game of tag. Any student who will be able to survive 10 minutes without being touched by the monsters would be given a month's free food at the cafeteria. Immediately, she starts the countdown. Inglis takes down all the monsters. She then tried again, but the same outcome occurred again. The principal is forced to make a deal with Inglis that she will give Inglis, Ronnie, and Leon free food for 3 months if Inglis stops taking down the monsters. Inglis is happy with the deal and plays her own part. At the end of the 10 minutes, Inglis is the last woman standing. She keeps her promise and gives the free food tickets to Inglis and her friends. After dinner, before going back to their rooms, Ronnie and Inglis see a girl shouting at Leon. The girl doesn't like the fact that Leon was put as her roommate. Ronnie calls the girl a jerk, then invites Leon to stay in their own room. Leon agrees, and for the first time in a long time, Ronnie and Inglis have to share a bed. but they're happy to share the bed with Leon. They also assured her that she wasn't alone. At the cafeteria, Ronnie and Inglis eat to satisfaction. They have a meal course from A to E. This isn't enough for them as they try to go through the course again. Leon, on the other hand, ate modestly. While still at the cafeteria, Rati and Prem enter. Prem isn't happy with Rati for letting her wake up late. Rati, on the other hand, tries to justify himself. Rati talks to Inglis and Ronnie about their eating habits. He then tells them that the amount of food they ate was enough to feed him and Prem for 3 days. Ronnie and Inglis don't really have much to say. Inglis breaks the silence by saying that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Rati, however, switches the topic and uses the opportunity to introduce himself. He says his name is Rati from the Squire program, while Prem is from the Knights program. Ronnie, Inglis, and Leon in turn introduce themselves. After Leon introduces herself, other students in the cafeteria start to murmur. Rati notices this and asks about the reason for the murmuring. Leon apologizes, saying that she is the cause of it. Rati says he's from another country, and so the stuff didn't mean much to him. He says he's from Alucard, the same as Prem. The dialogue is interrupted by Prem, who tells Rati to eat fast so they can get to class. In class, they have a different teacher. He calls himself Margus, the practical instructor for the freshmen. The lesson of the day is for both knights and squires. It's a flying gear exercise. He starts the lesson by telling the students that magicite beasts aren't their only enemy. War is also among themselves. So they have to push themselves to the limit to bring peace and safety to the people, and to do so, they have to start by training their bodies. He then tells them that the first part of the lesson is for them to run to the flying gear dock. He advises them to try and keep up with him so as to not get lost. He starts to run. Rati realizes that the Margus is fast, and keeping up with him may be an issue. Ronnie and Leon waste no time in joining the race. As they run, Ronnie asks Leon if she knows where the flying gear dock is. Leon reassures Ronnie that the place is quite far. Inglis, however, didn't start running immediately. She decides to analyze and think of a different way of keeping up with Margus's pace. She realizes that if she just runs normally, she won't be able to keep up with Margus. Instead, she decides to use the principal gravity effect to her advantage. First, she converts her aether to mana. Then she tries to set the mana in the same way as the principal. Inglis does this successfully, then wastes no time on starting to run. She realizes that if she can get better, then maybe she can make herself heavier. Leon starts to get worried due to the fact that she didn't have any sight of Inglis. Ronnie, however, urges her to move on so that Inglis will still find a way to meet up. Just after saying this, Inglis passes the two of them at high speed. Rati, too, passes Ronnie and Leon. This makes Ronnie increase her pace so as to catch up with Rati, Prem, and Inglis. Prem begs Rati to reduce his pace and slow down a bit, but Rati is hell-bent on catching up with Inglis. Meanwhile, Margus tells the freshmen not to worry since they aren't expected to match up with his speed. Before he could complete his statement, Inglis showed up. She passes him and slows down a bit to ask if she could run ahead of him. Rati too shows up, but to Rati's surprise, Inglis isn't using her full strength to run. Margus asks for their names, then tells them that their class of freshmen has a lot of potential. Ronnie, Leon, and Prem finally manage to catch up with Inglis. Rati tells Inglis that he is not going to lose to her no matter what. Inglis then increases her speed in order to move ahead. Leon is surprised that Inglis could move that fast. Rati, on the other hand, finally gives up trying to maintain the pace of Inglis. He knows that if he tries to do so, he may actually die. Finally, they reach the flying gear dock. The students are amazed by the beautiful scenery. Ronnie doesn't waste time in telling Inglis how beautiful the place is. Inglis, in turn, agrees with her. Prem adds that since it is a royal academy, it has to have the latest technology. Margus tells them to form groups of 2 or 3 into flying gear. One person will take control while the other will have to hold on tight and make sure he or she doesn't fall off. Inglis asks to go first. Ronnie agrees with her since squires spend a lot of time piloting flying gear. Leon, on the other hand, wishes Inglis the best of luck. Margus instructs them, saying that the instructions to fly the gear are on the panel in front of them. After activating the engine, he tells them to switch to flight mode. Then, once the wings are out, slowly press the accelerator. Inglis does as instructed, thus making the flying gear move up in the air. Ronnie is surprised that Inglis could fly so easily. She tells Inglis to keep it up. Inglis first goes high up in the sky before starting to move the flying gear in the direction she instructed. Leon exclaims that the scenery is beautiful. Ronnie, however, is concerned that Inglis is going too fast. Ronnie becomes quite afraid. Inglis reminds her that they are going to use the flying gear to fight magicite beasts one day, so they had better get used to the speed. Ronnie understands that moving at a pace is the best way to get used to flying gear. Just then, Rati hovers above Inglis. He's trying to prove that he is better than Inglis at something. Inglis, not being ready to lose, makes it mandatory that she will catch up with him and even be better at it. She then uses her power to move faster than Rati. Inglis boosts herself with her power. This time, she moves even faster. Rati at this point asks Inglis why she was doing what she did. The answer given by Inglis goes around the fact of her hating to lose. Margus notices this scene and appears to be satisfied. He exclaims that it looked like freshman potential. Rati is forced to stop and just admire Inglis. He says that Inglis isn't only pretty, but also does incredible things. Pram is jealous because Rati hardly ever says anything nice about her. The evening after classes, Principal Miliera calls the freshmen to address them. She announces that a special test is to be given to some students in the freshman class. She then tells Ronnie, Leon, Liselot, Pram, and Inglis to step forward. Ronnie, Leon, Pram, and Liselot were recommended from the night program, while Inglis is recommended from the Squire program. This test was the one the older students had been talking about. To be recommended for such a test alone is a huge honor. It meant that the academy saw potential in you. The principal continues to speak. She tells them that the test is a simple one. She will send them somewhere, and to pass, they have to come back before the time is up. Inglis asks where the somewhere is. Principal Miliera says that it's a special space created by her artifact. She calls it the Labyrinth of Trials. It is meant to test the student's strength and mental fortitude as well. She continues that the goal is to enhance your mental strength as a knight. Miliera conjures up some doors, and then tells each student to pick a door. They all do so as they are told. The students find themselves in a kind of space. In the space, they face some challenges from the past. Inglis realizes that she is being faced with memories from her youth and past life. She doesn't really like the idea of going down memory lane, so she uses her power to break through space. She is surprised to see that there are more spaces above her. This meant that all the students had a space of their own, and that all the spaces were connected to where the others were. She sees Liselot in one of the other spaces. Liselot is surprised to see that Inglis has destroyed such a strange space. She asks Inglis why she destroyed the space. Inglis replies that she got bored and didn't want to go on straight ahead. Liselot then tells Inglis to advise Ronnie to stop hating her classmates so much. Inglis, however, replies saying that Ronnie doesn't hate anyone. She only hated the fact that Liselot was rude to Leon. Liselot tries to defend herself by saying she is the daughter of the kingdom's chancellor, and so she needs to be extra careful. The fact that Leon's brother betrayed the country is the thing that worried her the most. Liselot later acknowledges the fact that she went too far and was too harsh to Leon. Inglis promises to send her apologies to Ronnie and Leon. Inglis then asks if Liselot knows a way to get out of the space. Liselot uses the gift given to her by the artifact. The gift is wings. She uses her wings to fly up in space and does all this with Inglis in her arms. Inglis tells her that with such a gift, Liselot doesn't even need the flying gear. Liselot smiles, then promises to take Inglis to the top of the space. On the other way to the top, they see Leon struggling with a particular part of her past. Inglis moves ahead to help Leon with her challenge she is faced with. Leon, on the other hand, is surprised to see Inglis. She inquires about how Inglis got to reach her own place. Inglis replies that she got tired, so she broke through the walls of space. About to get attacked by one of her memories, Liselot saves both Inglis and Leon. Liselot tells Inglis that it's easier for an outsider to fight someone's past than the person himself. Leon doesn't believe that the same person who said she wouldn't be able to share a room as roommates would still be able to save her. However, Leon thanks Liselot for her act of heroism. Liselot apologizes for being rude and tells Leon to leave her room. Inglis assures Leon that Liselette is actually a nice girl. Liselette says that it's actually highly unnecessary to say. Liselette then holds on to Leon and Inglis. She uses her wings to take them to the top floor of the space. They all made it out of space in time. Principal Miliera is surprised that they all come out of the same door, even after entering through different doors. Inglis assures the principal that nothing unusual has happened. The principal thinks maybe the space is broken or something went wrong. The students assured her that everything in space went accordingly. The principal gives Liselette, Inglis, and Leon a pass. Pram, on the other hand, failed almost immediately, just after asking about Ronnie. She comes out of the door she entered. Inglis rejoices that she, Ronnie, Liselette, and Leon passed the test. Ronnie exclaims that the test was hard, and she's tired. She tells Inglis that all she wants to do is to eat and sleep. Inglis signals Leon that they were about to have a rough night due to Ronnie. Liselette hears everything, then decides to take Leon back as a roommate. That night after eating, Ronnie and Inglis help Leon carry her things over to Liselette's room. Leon is afraid due to the way Liselette pushed her out of the room before, although she tries to assure Ronnie and Inglis that she was fine. Inglis tells Leon that everything is going to be fine. After all, Liselette is quite a nice person. They finally got to Liselette's room. Liselette plays a prank on Leon, Ronnie, and Inglis. She acts as if she isn't happy with Leon entering the room. Liselette then puts off the act and welcomes Leon into the room. She tells Leon that she's happy being her roommate. Did you enjoy this recap? If you did, kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can bring you the recap of the next episode. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.